So lovely good evening and welcome to Camnet TV Main News. To present, my name is Jeffrey Ziambo. The headlines in the news tonight: ICOZ partially lifts campaign ban slapped on the UPND and PF. Government orders closure of all bars and nightclubs for 2 weeks. ICOZ advises the church not to politicize the pulpit. And in international news, Tunisia cracks down on migrants after deal with Europe. And in sports news, FAS General Secretary ADRIAN KASHALA sent on administrative leave.
Zambia has embarked on an economic journey for individual financial emancipation, empowering its citizens through land acquisition and developing the nation through agriculture. This time, Zambians are coming together, taking it upon themselves with the help of government to develop this great nation by taking individual responsibility and ownership of this great nation. The economic revolution has started. There are thousands of Zambians with a can-do mindset who are resolute, unstoppable, full of confidence and conviction that Zambia's set time of favor for development is now. Don't be left out. This could be the time you have been waiting for. Camnet Television, in conjunction with the United Agrivision Consultancy Limited, will be hosting a national conference on becoming a millionaire through agriculture. Date: 1st October and 2nd October 2021. Charges: 750 kwacha per person per day, that includes lunch. A limited number of participants through Zoom have also been reserved. You can also be part of the conference from the comfort of your home by registering online via Zoom, joining the people who were born for greatness. Charges for participation via Zoom are only 300 kwacha per person. Time: 0730 hours to 17 hours. Registration and confirmation of attendance will take place on the 29th of September 2021. Time: 14 hours to 17 hours. Venue: the Healing Word Ministries International, the home of Camnet Television in Apex Hill, Kabulonga Road, Lusaka.
Hello once again, the news in detail. 22 makeshift shops at Messenger Market in Solwezi district of Northwestern Province, Zambia, have been gutted. According to eyewitnesses, the fire started around 02 hours on Monday morning. Traders have complained that they have lost their livelihood as a result of the inferno. They have since called on the government through the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit and well-wishers to come to their aid. We have more in the following report.
Fire brings destruction and affects lives and livelihoods, just like some people have not recovered following the fire incident in Zambia's capital city, Lusaka, at the city market, where goods worth huge sums of money were destroyed in an inferno. A similar calamity is being witnessed by the traders in Northwestern Province of Solwezi district as they woke up to a shock of discovering that their shops were gutted. Available information indicates that 22 makeshift shops at Messenger Market were affected.
This is a plasma 43-inch. These are the remains belonging to a client. The assets have been burnt to ashes, of which I cannot even estimate the amount. They are just too many. There are televisions, those are plasmas. I've got these other digital TVs, color TVs, inverters, amplifiers, welding machines. I've got chargers, decoders, so many I can mention. Phones for customers, laptops. My appeal to the government is just to render us an assistance because I cannot manage to compensate all these customers.
According to eyewitnesses, the fire started around 02 hours Monday morning. The traders have complained that they have lost their livelihoods as a result of an inferno.
It seems the police post here, they are not helping us because that's where we should firstly learn to for anything, any emergencies that is happening around our community. But when we went there earlier, they told us to say, no, go to Solwezi Central, we can't do anything. When the police have got the radio whereby they can lace it on radio. And unfortunately, he sat there. The other thing is bringing the police that are already drunk and putting them on service is not helping us. We need people that are serious with work here. When I called a friend of mine who works from the station, Solwezi bus station there, is the one that raised it on radio. That's when the CID came, and then the water bowser that they brought here, Solwezi Municipal Council should look into it to say their trucks are working properly. The water bowser that they brought here at 0440, it wasn't working as well. It took time, it started working at 550.
They have since called on the government through the Disaster Management and Mitigation Unit, DMMU, and other well-wishers to come to their aid.
But if you want to go to the of the water, no shadow, just an abocha. If you 15,000 then on back of here, about the what over fish of the difference of a gas. You also remember, where you say, good man of the shop, was about the work by home,
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
The general adherence to COVID-19 measures have improved among marketeers, which they say is due to escalating numbers of people dying and getting infected with the virus. Proprietor of Moyo Trading Investment in Kalingalinga says the deaths are now relatable and closer to them, unlike the previous waves where few people were infected. Mr. Moyo, however, noted that small retailers still have a challenge in observing health guidelines, but hoped that the situation will improve. We have details in the following report.
As the COVID-19 ravages through the globe with jaw-dropping numbers of deaths and infections irrespective of age or race, Zambia, like many other countries, struggles to contain it, as evidenced by the escalating number of deaths and infections being witnessed. Some traders in Lusaka's Kalingalinga area have noted a significant general improvement in adherence of COVID-19 health guidelines, such as wearing of masks when dealing with their clients.
Control because it is ma max benzovuta vanhu but third wave manje vantu vachitadhiya once tika no max vonse vabhura nama max no max vonse vabhura swashusha nakushusha manje because yaonekera tu manje kuti yankara exactly vantu vafa vambiri vantu ioneka nakuoneka manje apa number 1 mezotushupa maningi mezokutsapa shoprite chabe ndiko nazavura max muno market atikulipa but this time vakonka malamulo
baphala ina musipaphala matenda yapaka abantu bakufa maningi vambira ndivakufa waliyesa mazimala max pogolo okula wave general adherence kuoneka mone yangalira apo I think vantu vachita understand that corona iriko zoona because ija second wave benzo kambata unaona ko ndani we paneba mina namulira kuombera kuti na corona, so it's like this time around vantu vaona manje kuti chintu chiriko zoona, otherwise ningaita advise vantu kuli konse tendisambe kumanja tentivale ma max.
For others, it is business as usual, as money is the main driving force. Their only appeal is for people to adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines in order to safeguard not only their own lives but also the lives of other traders.
So bakapera pana market muntu akachoka kunyumba singamuze kuti para max maona but yafunika utenga damulo kutoka kunyumba ndio pamina fungo tabandi kubala max kukamwa.
Liseli Kanyanga Mubanga, Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
The Ministry of Health is encouraged by the rate at which COVID-19 patients are recovering despite the challenging phase the country is experiencing. Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary for Technical Services, Dr. Kennedy Malama, says the recovery rate stands at 84%, with a total of 126,441 persons recovering since the pandemic broke out in the country. And Dr. Malama says Zambia will, in the coming days, be receiving support from both the World Health Organization and Africa CDC in terms of commodities and technical expertise. Meanwhile, 69 COVID-19 deaths have been recorded in the last 24 hours, with 1,093 new confirmed cases. An Inspector General of Police, Kakoma Kanganja, has directed all provincial commissioners to work with the Ministry of Health and local government to inspect compliance levels by members of the public.
Despite the challenging phase we continue facing as a country, we are encouraged by our rate of recovery. In other words, those people who have been infected by COVID-19, the rate of recovery in this country stands at 84%. And as you may be aware, we've been updating on this. Our country is one of those with a relatively respectable recovery rate. But this is not to underrate and downplay the situation we find ourselves in. Cumulatively as a country, in terms of recoveries, we stand at 126,441 since the COVID-19 was confirmed in Zambia.
I wish to further direct all provincial commissioners to collaborate and work closely with the Ministry of Health and the local government authorities in their respective areas and conduct joint operations so as to ensure total adherence to the provisions of the existing laws. This approach should trickle down to all police districts, stations, and posts across the country if we are to effectively implement the measures formulated by government aimed at controlling the spread of the coronavirus pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, after this briefing, I expect to see positive results from all provinces, and this can only be achieved if members of the combined team work together as one.
The Ministry of Local Government has with immediate effect closed all bars, nightclubs, taverns and casinos for a period of 14 days subject to review. Ministry Permanent Secretary Matthew Ngulube says the said businesses will only operate on a takeaway basis. Mr. Ngulube says the decision to close the businesses has been necessitated due to their refusal to comply with the directive that they operate from Friday to Sunday evenings. Meanwhile, Ndola City Council Public Relations Officer Fabi Mwandama says 5 people have been apprehended for obstructing officers from carrying out their COVID-19 inspections. We have details in the following report.
In nightclubs, among other businesses, are proving to be notorious when it comes to them adhering to the directive by the head of state through the Secretary to Cabinet, Dr. Simon Miti, that they only operate from 18 to 22 hours. Local Government Permanent Secretary last week directed all the local authorities across the country to ensure that they beef up their compliance inspection levels to ensure that no one is abrogating the directive. But this has not been easy for the local authorities across the country, who have been having a hard time at ensuring that the bars and nightclubs adhere to the guidelines. The Ndola City Council was conducting inspections of compliance levels since Saturday through to Sunday, where 10 bars and 2 nightclubs have been closed for abrogating the guidelines by not closing their premises at 22 hours.
It is quite disappointing that many bars and nightclubs are going against the presidential directive on the stipulated hours of operating and the preventive guidelines of COVID-19. The combined team from council and the state police closed down 10 bars and 2 nightclubs for abrogating the law. We would like to warn Ndola residents and bar owners and nightclub owners to adhere to the COVID-19 guidelines.
And Mkoshi Town Council has also closed 31 bars and nightclubs that were equally found not adhering to the guidelines. Mkoshi Town Council Public Relations Officer Clarence Kaoma adds that Zion Church is among institutions that risk closure, as they have been convening a conference for 8 days while camping at the church premises, despite government directing that churches only meet for an hour.
And during the operation, which saw us visit a total of 91 bars, 39 of these bars did not comply with the stipulated guidelines, and this translated to about 43% of non-adherence, leaving only 57% adhering to the COVID-19 guidelines. We as a local authority also visited Zion Church that, to our surprise, has not met all the necessary documentations, and so it has been operating illegally. As I speak to you, they've been having gatherings.
The behavior by liquor businesses has now angered the government, who have announced that bars, nightclubs, taverns and casinos have been closed indefinitely for a period of 14 days and will only operate on a takeaway basis subject to review.
Firstly, all bars, taverns, nightclubs and casinos shall be closed and will only operate on a takeaway basis for the next 14 days subject to review. The proprietors of these businesses should ensure adherence to this directive. This does not mean that people should buy their drinks and then park in the car parks and start drinking from their cars or around the premises. Should any premise be found allowing individuals to drink from the car parks, businesses will have their licenses revoked.
The Permanent Secretary adds that marketeers should also ensure that they are masked up whenever they visit or trade at the market before government is forced to take a step against them.
Government will continue to monitor the situation in markets and bus stations. Should there be continued failure by the members of the public visiting these places to adhere to the rules, government may be forced to close up the markets and the bus stations. Fellow countrymen, women and youths, government will continue to work in a multi-sector approach to monitor compliance and adherence to the COVID-19 health guidelines in all the public places.
The battle against COVID-19 can only be won if all citizens play their part and ensure they follow the prescribed guidelines. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
The Continental Leadership Research Institute has called on government and other stakeholders in the oxygen supply chain to step up efforts of ensuring that there is a steady supply of oxygen in health institutions managing the COVID-19 pandemic. Organization Executive Director Paul Kakula says the availability of oxygen is a critical component in the treatment of the pandemic, hence the need to ensure that the commodity is readily available so as to avoid unnecessary loss of lives. Mr. Kakula says his organization has noted the current oxygen shortage in health facilities around the country during the third wave of the pandemic. He notes with concern that health facilities that have been built with the capacity to supply oxygen, such as the University Teaching Hospital and Levi Manawasa Teaching Hospital, are only operating at 50% capacity, which has affected the availability of oxygen in these hospitals.
Research Institute has taken time to study the situation around oxygen levels in health facilities around the country during this third wave of the COVID-19. The Institute has noted the shortage of oxygen in many health facilities across the country and the need to ensure that oxygen is available in health centers so as to save as many lives as possible. In view of the current situation with the oxygen levels, the Institute recommends the following immediate measures. Firstly is that we have institutions such as Levi, Manawasa and the University Teaching Hospital that have a self-supply of oxygen, and we have noted that these institutions are not operating at 100%, and there is a need to ensure that there is institutional capacities built so that these institutions start operating at 100%.
The Bus and Taxi Drivers Association of Zambia National Secretary Sidney Mbewe has disclosed that bus stations and markets are experiencing challenges in enforcing COVID-19 guidelines due to high numbers of people walking in and out of the bus stations. Mr. Mbewe notes that people come from different localities, which makes it difficult for them to enforce the measures. We have more in this report.
The COVID-19 has affected all various sectors of the economy, and the public service transport has not been spared. Public transport sector plays a critical role in the running of the economy, and people depend on it to meet their daily needs. It is cheaper and easier to prevent COVID-19 than to cure it, but unfortunately, observing one of the golden rules of social distancing in public transport is impossible. I spoke to some bus drivers at the Kulima Tower bus station to understand how they are enforcing COVID-19 guidelines such as masking up.
Coronavirus, because coronavirus is still real. Abantu balefwa worldwide. Teko pitwale mwana kwatfira bachulufya mutwe balela ndati bufi nomba polo ya isariwa panomba. Mwana abanesu mayiro balifwa bantu.
National Secretary of Bus and Taxi Drivers Association of Zambia, Sydney Mbewe, has called on the members of the public to adhere to the measures put in place to combat COVID-19.
As you are aware, bus stations and markets which move alongside areas of high congregation of people coming from various corners of the city or any city within any municipality. Now, looking at the people that come within the bus stations and markets, they are coming from various homes which have got various challenges economically, because we have seen that most of families are now going through stress of their breadwinners either having succumbed to the COVID-19 or having lost their jobs or having put on a hold because the company can no longer sustain.
Mr. Mbewe has further observed that bus stations and markets are contributing to a spike in COVID-19 cases.
Number of meetings that we've held with them, because it has also been a big concern that the bus stations and markets are super spreaders of the COVID-19. And one of the most practical measures they thought of implementing was to reduce the number of passengers that are on each bus. Now, in practice, that is not possible because any business is based on income and expenditure. And whether the expenditure overweighs the income, it means your business then becomes unviable and unfeasible. So, we have been...
COVID-19 is preventable, hence the need for people to adhere to the measures put in place by health authorities. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Electoral Commission of Zambia, ICOZ, has lifted the campaign suspension slapped on the United Party for National Development, UPND, and the Patriotic Front, PF, in Namwala, Nakonde, and Mpulungu district. ICOZ Chief Electoral Officer Criticius Nshindano, however, says the suspension of campaigns in Lusaka province will only be partially lifted as the Commission is not satisfied with the conduct of the two political parties in Lusaka. Mr. Nshindano says that the Commission has received a number of incidences by the two political party cadres in Lusaka that are still under investigations. The Chief Electoral Officer adds that other reports of violence have been reported from other provinces, which he says are under investigations, and that appropriate action will be taken after investigations are concluded.
The Commission has reviewed the situation and would like to announce that we have fully lifted the suspension of campaigns for the PF and UPND in the following districts, that is Mpulungu, Nakonde, and Namwala, that is 3 districts, following the satisfactory conduct of the two political parties in these jurisdictions. The Commission greatly thanks the leadership in these districts and call on them to really uphold the peace that they've embarked on. It is quite commendable. The Commission, however, is not fully satisfied with the conduct of the Patriotic Front and indeed the United Party for National Development in Lusaka. The Commission has received a number of incidences in Lusaka that are under investigation. And this is quite saddening. We have reports of maiming of each other in terms of political party cadres and other incidences which have been reported to the Commission, and we are working closely with the Zambia Police and other agencies to quickly conclude these investigations. Therefore, the Commission has only partially lifted the suspension in Lusaka district. This means that all physical campaigns in Lusaka remain suspended. However, in addition to the sport adverts and the documentaries that were allowed during the suspension period on various media platforms, the Commission will allow the two political parties to air their programs on radio and television, as well as publish articles in the newspapers and indeed any other activity that does not involve physical campaign.
The Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACOD, says the recent ban of political activities for the Patriotic Front and the United Party for National Development in 4 districts should act as deterrent for political parties who perpetuate violence. The electoral body has lifted the ban in 3 areas among the 4, excluding Lusaka. SACOD Executive Director Boniface Chembe has since advised all parties to condemn violence at all costs, irrespective of how it happened. We have details in the following report.
It has been our hope that with this suspension, political parties, political leaders, not only from the ruling PF and opposition UPND, but also others, will take some lessons from this suspension as we build momentum towards the 12th August 2021 general elections, so that no parts of this country experience any acts of political violence. Peace is in the interest of each aspiring candidate and each political party, because it does not scare away voters. Now, when you have electoral violence, its ultimate net effect is scaring voters, intimidating voters, and when poll day comes, we will have low voter turnout, which obviously speaks to the strength of our democracy, but also speaks to the quality of the legitimacy of those who get elected into office. So it is in the interest of everyone to ensure that the people of the Republic of Zambia, those who are eligible to vote, come out en masse and exercise their civic duty.
A political analyst, Professor Bizek Piri, has questioned the failure by the ruling Patriotic Front to sign the Peace and Non-Violence Charter developed by the Law Association of Zambia, LAS, recently. Professor Piri notes that LAS plays an important role in ensuring law and order is upheld before, during, and after elections through its role as an independent body and watchdog. He says the PF should be in the forefront to sign, as its president, Edgar Lungu, has on many occasions preached peace. Meanwhile, Professor Piri has echoed the need for all political parties to uphold uphold peace and order as they go about their respective campaign engagements to avoid harming innocent citizens in the country.
When a political party chooses not to append their signature, that in itself raises a lot of questions about their way of looking at violence in the country. As well, it becomes very difficult for other political parties to go peacefully when a major political party, a party that is in power, decides to shun that kind of a move, which is very positive in my view. So that has implications. I just hope that as political parties are moving towards elections, they abide by that party.
The Independent Churches of Zambia, ICOZ Board Chairperson Bishop David Masupa has urged the churches across the country to avoid politicizing their respective services as the country prepares for elections. In an interview with Camnet TV, Bishop Masupa has condemned the tendency of the clergy to giving platform to political leaders to advance their political remarks, malice and propaganda. He says the church is a place of worship and not a means by which politicians use for political mileage, given that the church caters for people of different political affiliations. We have more in this report.
Since time immemorial, politicians have used the church as a tool for their political mileage. This trend has been observed in recent months as the country gets near the polls. The political parties have on a number of occasions used the church as a platform for their political advantage, as observed by some stakeholders. The Independent Church of Zambia, ICOZ, President Bishop David Masupa has therefore urged the churches to avoid the politicizing of their respective church services.
We have seen a tendency of the politicians who were not even visiting the churches. Now they've come up with a system where they are visiting churches, and at the end of the day, instead of visiting the churches to go and sit in the pew, just because of a small token that they have, they want to be given an altar or a platform to come and address the church. I think that is wrong. We need to take cognizance of the fact that in that church there are people with different political opinions and affiliations. So when you go to that church, simply go and sit in that pew, and the least you can ask is for a prayer.
Meanwhile, Bishop Masupa has called on all religious groups to preach and foster peace as the country approaches the general elections. Speaking in the same interview, ICOZ president further encouraged the churches to tighten the fight against COVID-19 by avoiding the handling of physical money meant for offerings and instead use electronic means to avoid transmission of the virus.
We are aware that some churches cannot afford to send that money using bank, electronic systems, even mobile money. If you are found in that kind of a situation, we want to advise the church, especially the remote churches, that you need to have a hand sanitizer at hand, or just a dish of water and soap. Immediately you receive that money and you finish counting, quickly wash your hands and then put that money somewhere and take it to the bank.
Alex Shimba, reporting for Camnet TV, Lusaka.
Amnesty International has charged that years of intensifying repression have pushed Zambia to the brink of a human rights crisis ahead of the August 12 general elections. Amnesty International Director for East and Southern Africa, Depros Muchena, says Zambia has experienced a systematic erosion of the right to freedom of expression in the past 5 years. Mr. Muchena says authorities have abused the law to criminalize peaceful dissent, charging critics with a wide range of offenses, including criminal defamation, incitement of public disorder, and sedition. He was speaking during a virtual launch of a report dubbed Ruling by Fear and Repression, Amnesty International on Monday, focused on Zambia, highlighting a number of issues ranging from freedom of expression and police killings. We have details in the following report.
Suppression of human rights, police killings, crackdown of human rights, violations of the right of freedom of assembly, violation of the right of association. These are some of the things highlighted in the latest report by Amnesty International focusing on Zambia. In this report, according to Amnesty International's Director for East and Southern Africa, Depros Muchena, says years of intensifying repression have put Zambia to the brink of a human rights crisis ahead of the August presidential election. Under suppression of human rights findings, Zambia has experienced a systematic erosion of the right to freedom of expression in the past 5 years. Authorities have abused the law to criminalize peaceful dissent, charging critics with a wide range of offenses, including criminal defamation, incitement of public disorder, and sedition. For example, according to the report, on the 9th of March 2020, police arrested a 15-year-old boy in Kapirimposhi and charged him with 3 counts of criminal libel after he allegedly criticized President Lungu on Facebook. He is currently awaiting trial. Under police killings, the report revealed that the crackdown has also led to an escalation of excessive use of force by the police, which has been fatal in some cases. On the 22nd of December 2020, police shot dead 2 unarmed people at a gathering of opposition supporters, among other highlighted issues. Amnesty International has therefore recommended that the Zambian government immediately end the crackdown of freedom of expression, association by removing all underlined restrictions on the rights of people in Zambia to freely receive and disseminate independent information and express peaceful dissent. The recommendations are ensure that non-governmental groups can operate freely without undue interference, amend the IBA Act of 2010 to remove the arbitrary closure of media highlights, amend the relevant provisions of the Societies Act to remove the sections that empower the Registrar of Societies to deny the registration of new associations or deregister existing associations without objective criteria. Liseli Kanyanga Mubanga, Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
You're watching Camnet TV, not just another channel. We'll take our first commercial break. We'll be back with more news stories.
From time immemorial, we have had different types of lighting options, from those that can burn down our investments in minutes to those that dig holes in our pockets due to constant replacement and huge consumption of our ZESCO units. Savenda Electric introduces the new and advanced electric bulb with cutting-edge technology of LED that has low power consumption, gives out bright white light, and lasts up to 25,000 hours. Savenda Electric manufactures all types of LED light, like plastic LED fluorescent tubes, down lights, ceiling lights, outdoor fittings, and solar street lights made to customer specifications. Let's live on the bright side of life by choosing the wide range of Savenda electric lighting solutions that are available in all leading stores and supermarkets countrywide. For orders, call 0962-642-490 or email jnbunda@savenda.com or pchabula@savenda.com.
Mwanga Nkumbula International Airport, located just 15 kilometers from the Victoria Falls, is now one of the best and busiest airports that Zambia has. Vote for Edgar Chagwalungu and the PF that have brought you change.
At Master Signs, our services range from outdoor, indoor signage such as billboards, banners, 3D light boxes, pylons and neon signs. We are located at plot number 397A, Makeni Road, Lusaka, at Oryx Filling Station. For more details, call us on +260 967 100 090 or +260 966 999 981, or better still, email us at infomastersign@gmail.com. Master Sign, we will make it shine.
Every day for me means hard work, going to sell my goods at the local market. To get more customers, I have my secret. Oracle Pure Glycerin. It's soft, smooth, and keeps my skin perfect. And my customers know it. Thank you, Oracle, for my perfect skin.
Zambia has embarked on an economic journey for individual financial emancipation, empowering its citizens through land acquisition and developing the nation through agriculture. This time, Zambians are coming together, taking it upon themselves with the help of government to develop this great nation by taking individual responsibility and ownership of this great nation. The economic revolution has started. There are thousands of Zambians with a can-do mindset who are resolute, unstoppable, full of confidence and conviction that Zambia's set time of favor for development is now. Don't be left out. This could be the time you have been waiting for. Camnet Television, in conjunction with the United Agrivision Consultancy Limited, will be hosting a national conference on becoming a millionaire through agriculture. Date 1st October and 2nd October 2021. Charges 750 kwacha per person per day, that includes lunch. A limited number of participants through Zoom have also been reserved. You can also be part of the conference from the comfort of your home by registering online via Zoom, joining the people who were born for greatness. Charges for participation via Zoom are only 300 kwacha per person. Time 0730 hours to 17 hours. Registration and confirmation of attendance will take place on the 29th of September 2021. Time 14 hours to 17 hours. Venue, the Healing Word Ministries International, the home of Camnet Television in Apex Hill, Kapalonga Road, Lusaka.
Welcome back. We continue with the news. United, Prosperous and Peaceful Zambia UPPZ President Charles Chanda has charged that the best reward and honor politicians can give Zambia's first Republican President, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, is to withdraw from countrywide campaigns till he is buried. Mr. Chanda notes that despite the few days remaining to the August 12 general election, he will not stab the country's former president in the back by campaigning while he is not yet put to rest. He adds that the least each politician can do is to desist from campaigning, as doing so is disrespectful to the gallant father of the nation. He reiterates that politicians must pledge loyalty in respecting the departed 97-year-old statesman who died on Thursday, the 17th of June 2021 at Lusaka's Mainasoko Military Hospital.
Personally, I wouldn't stab our former president in the back by moving up and down, campaigning and promising the country that we can do this, we can do that, when the man who helped to build this country that many have destroyed is in the coffin. I'm saying that that will be very unfortunate on my part. And so as UPPZ, we will only resume our campaigns after the great statesman is buried.
A pharmacist and a director of logistics at the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supply Agency, ZMSA, has told the Lusaka High Court that the claims that the institution breached its statutory duty should be dismissed because this mandate was only to store and distribute medicines and medical supplies on behalf of the Ministry of Health. Ilitongo Sondashi 40 has submitted that in 2020, ZMMSA stored medicines and medical supplies that were supplied by Honeybee Pharmacy, an international drug company limited, on behalf of the Ministry of Health. He states that the said medicines and medical supplies were distributed to various locations based on the electronic system that ZMMSA has put in place. This is in a matter where Chapter 1 Foundation Limited has sued Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority and the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supply Agency for failing to perform their statutory duties and exposing the citizenry to substandard medicines and medical supplies which have untold effects on their health. We have more in this report.
Almost a 4-month passed, and the case of substandard medicines and medical supplies distributed to citizens continues before the Lusaka High Court. In this case, Chapter 1 Foundation Limited has dragged 2 institutions to court, namely Zambia Medicines Regulatory Authority ZAMRA and Zambia Medicines and Medical Supply Agency ZAMSA, for failing to perform their statutory duties and exposing citizens to substandard medicines and medical supplies which has untold effects on their health. Chapter 1 Foundation, who is a plaintiff in this matter, has sued the 2 institutions following the issue of the supply of defective medicines which came to the spotlight early this year during the revelation of the Public Accounts Committee hearing on how a company was awarded a contract through the Ministry of Health worth $17 million to supply drugs, but was later discovered that the said medicines were not good for citizens' use. The foundation wants an order that ZAMRA and ZAMSA give a detailed account and description including, but not limited to, the names and batch numbers of all the record medicines and medical supplies supplied by International Drug Company Limited, Honeybee Pharmaceutical Limited and Shalina Pharmaceutical Zambia Limited. Chapter 1 Foundation is also seeking an order that the defendants give an extent to which all the record medicines and allied substances have been distributed, including qualities distributed, dates of distributions, locations, and an estimate of the number of people exposed to them. But in the latest submission before court this month, a witness from ZAMSA submits that the court dismissed with cause the case as the institution has not breached its statutory act in any way. Iletonga Sondash, 40, a pharmacist and director of logistics at SAMSA, states that the role played by SAMSA was to store and distribute medicines and medical supplies on behalf of the Ministry of Health when it operated as a Medical Stores Limited. The witness says that in performing its role, SAMSA had put in place an electronic system of operation as regards to all products that are received. This system covers the receipt of products, storage and guide, and where the products are supposed to be distributed to. The witness further submits that the other role was only to provide the location of where the products have been distributed and also quarantine the products that are still in storage. The case continues as the court is waiting to hear more testimony from other witnesses. Miriam Kemba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
3 Zambia National Service ZNS employees have applied for judicial review against a decision to retire them in national interest without justifiable cause. The applicants, Major Pumulo Ngenda, Captain Mubanga Chinyimba, and Captain Simeon Sitali, have cited the Attorney General as a respondent in the matter. According to the affidavit verifying facts relied on for leave to apply for judicial review, Major Ngenda swore that on or about January 2021, the applicants were assigned to the Zambia National Service training camp in Kafiwe as training instructors. He states that on March 8, 2021, while on inspection, it was discovered that officer cadets did not clean their sleeping quarters, and in view of that, Major Ngenda instructed the second and third applicants to cancel classes and instead ensure that the officer cadets clean their sleeping quarters. He added that later, the other 2 applicants ordered for the punishment of the officer cadets, which resulted in some of the cadets sustaining bruises on the arm. He submits that they later received letters of retirement from the public service in public interest under the hand of the President of the Republic of Zambia, a decision which he reasonably believes to be a punitive measure. They claim that the decision to retire them was unreasonable and irrational and without justified grounds. As the country continues to mourn the death of the country's founding father, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, a concerned resident of Lusaka has observed that there is a story that is not being told on KK, which is that he was a force to reckon with until 1996 when he was barred from contesting. Speaking in a walk-in interview with Camnet TV News, Jolie Nalili narrates that around 1994, the United National Independence Party UNIP, under the watch of Dr. Kaunda, was still viable, evidenced in the scoping of some by-elections in Mbala and Mpolongo by UNIP and the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy. Mr. Nalini explains that KK never ceased to be relevant in the year 1991, when he lost power to MMD. He explains that the fact that the parentage clause was introduced in the 1996 Constitution is evidence that UNIP had the potential to bounce back to power. He further narrates that the decision to boycott the elections is what marked the end of KK and affected UNIP as a party. Mr. Nalili therefore says KK should be held in high esteem for his humility, adding that the political interest of his critics affected his relevance and that of UNIP.
And up to now, there has been no evidence whatsoever what Kaunda did wrong that time. But I feel it was because of the popularity. And coincidentally, the constitution was amended and the parentage clause was inserted, which barred Kaunda from recontesting the election in '96. So if he was not a threat, how come they had to go through the constitutional amendment way to bar him? So Kaunda could not stand. As a result, my father, together with many others who could have easily won elections, were told to boycott the elections of '96. That's how Chiruba managed to win. But had Kaunda participated, I still feel the results could have been otherwise, because at that time there was a lot of disillusionment and a lot of people had lost jobs. there was privatization and all that. And a lot of people realized that MMD had given them a raw deal. So that's the part I feel probably, and
You're watching Camnet TV News. We'll take another break. We'll be back with international and sports news.
I was born in Mwengwa in a grass-thatched house. I went to school barefoot and then to secondary school. University came, all of these on government bursary, on the sponsorship of the people of Zambia. Many people ask me questions. Why have you continued to seek public office? You've been arrested 15 times. This fight is not about Hakainde. It's about 18 million Zambians who want a better life. I'm standing for the presidency of this country because I know and I believe that this country is so rich and yet its people live in poverty. I am standing for that child to have an opportunity to go to school the way I did myself. It's time for change. Zambians have suffered enough. I'm Hakainde Hichilema. I invite you to take my hand. Together, we will build a better life for every Zambian.
In this fast-paced era of industrial boom and pop growth, there is need to invest in smart ways of managing electricity and water consumption and reducing utility billing costs associated with the postpaid billing system. At Savenda Electronics, we manufacture right here in Zambia different types of high-quality smart electricity and water meters to customer specifications. Savenda Electronics water and electricity meters help you monitor your usage and gives notifications such as low units, tampering, low battery, and many other features. These easy-to-use meters makes it easier to buy units even in these COVID times and top up just from the comfort of your space. Favorable contract terms are available to both electricity and water utilities. For more details, get in touch with us on the following numbers: 0956 580 349 or 0977 498 318. Savenda Electronics, the real deal.
Lungu and the Patriotic Front have transformed the transportation sector by facilitating the construction of bus stations around the country. Vote for Edgar Chagwa Lungu and the PF that have brought you change.
Zambia has embarked on an economic journey for individual financial emancipation, empowering its citizens through land acquisition and developing the nation through agriculture. This time, Zambians are coming together, taking it upon themselves with the help of government to develop this great nation by taking individual responsibility and ownership of this great nation. The economic revolution has started. There are thousands of Zambians with a can-do mindset who are resolute, unstoppable, full of confidence and conviction that Zambia's set time of favor for development is now. Don't be left out. This could be the time you have been waiting for. Camnet Television, in conjunction with the United Agrivision Consultancy Limited, will be hosting a national conference on becoming a millionaire through agriculture. Date 1st October and 2nd October 2021. Charges 750 kwacha per person per day, that includes lunch. A limited number of participants through Zoom have also been reserved. You can also be part of the conference from the comfort of your home by registering online via Zoom, joining the people who were born for greatness. Charges for participation via Zoom are only 300 kwacha per person. Time 0730 hours to 17 hours. Registration and confirmation of attendance will take place on the 29th of September 2021. Time 14 hours to 17 hours. Venue the Healing Word Ministries International, the home of Camnet Television in Abex Hill, Kabulonga Road, Lusaka.
Welcome back. And in international news, Tunisia's defense ministry said Sunday that its navy had rescued 178 migrants who were trying to cross the Mediterranean from Libya to reach Europe. 2 bodies were recovered and 178 migrants rescued during 3 operations off Tunisia's south coast, a ministry statement said. The migrants, who the ministry said were from Egypt, Tunisia, Syria, Ivory Coast, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Mali and Ethiopia, had set off from the Libyan port of Zuwara overnight Friday to Saturday. Tunisian authorities on Thursday intercepted 267 would-be migrants who had also begun the sea crossing from Libya, most of them Bangladeshis, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, said. In other news, Yemen government is struggling to keep strategic region of Marib. Fighting between Yemeni government forces and Houthi rebels has left dozens of people dead in the strategic region of Marib. The area is the government's last northern stronghold and important for peace negotiations. Al Jazeera's Charlotte Bellis reports, and here is a roundup of international news.
The mostly youthful migrants disembarked the Navy's boats at the Ben Gaden dock on Tunisia's south coast. Tired and exhausted, some needed to be supported to walk. Tunisia's defense ministry said Sunday 178 migrants who were trying to cross the Mediterranean from Libya to reach Europe were rescued. The migrants from Egypt, Tunisia, Syria, Ivory Coast, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Mali and Ethiopia had set off from the Libyan port of Zuwara overnight Friday. The Navy also recovered 2 bodies. European countries have stepped up their campaign to keep migrants out. European Union officials last month traveled to Tunis to discuss a migration deal. Tunisia would be offered economic assistance by Brussels in exchange for stopping migrant boats from leaving its shores.
Dusk in Marib only illuminates a Houthi offensive on Yemeni government forces. Darkness has done nothing to stop their recent offensives. After almost 7 years of war, Marib is the front line. The area is the Saudi-backed government's last stronghold in northern Yemen. It is rich in natural resources, and both sides believe controlling Marib means controlling peace negotiations.
Marib city has become a hub and like an operation room for the Saudi coalition to attack Yemen. That's why they think by clearing Marib, this actually will clear all north of Yemen.
Hundreds have been killed since fighting escalated in Marib in February. Since Thursday, the government says the Iranian-backed Houthis have renewed their efforts, attacking them from the north, south and west. The US says fighting in Marib is a serious threat to achieving a truce.
We thank God, our morals are high and the tribes are joining to support the battle on the front line.
Marib used to be a relative safe haven. It attracted hundreds of thousands of people displaced by fighting in other parts of the country.
The people are quite fed up of the situation in Marib. There's over 1 million displaced people. Famine is rampant and people are quite fed up. And they are more and more backing the government, understanding that this is for them the only hope for truce and long-lasting peace in Yemen.
Houthis fired a missile at this petrol station in Marib earlier this month. Filling up his car was Tahir Farag. He'd taken his 2-year-old daughter with him to a market that morning. They too had settled in Marib after being displaced by fighting further north. Tahir and Layan were 2 of 21 people killed.
She was such a fun child. She loved having fun a lot and liked joking around. Her dad adored her. He was in love with her.
Gamila mourns her loss, surrounded by Lian's favourite toys and a battle looming ever louder. Fighting intensifying as the prospect of peace fuels the war. Charlotte Bellis, Al Jazeera.
Hopeful to achieve economic integration with Iraq, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and King Abdullah II of Jordan arrived in Baghdad. They were received by Iraq's President Barham Saleh and held discussions with Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi. Intelligence officials and foreign ministers also took part in discussions on investment and security cooperation.
We are now ahead of carrying out projects like power grids, agriculture, transportation and food security, as well as the financial and banking relations and infrastructure development. There's also work on sea transport, housing and reconstruction.
Establishing a free trade zone on the border between Iraq and Jordan was also on the agenda, along with constructing a road to link the three countries, transferring Egyptian workers and electricity to Iraq, and constructing a pipeline to transfer oil from Iraq to Egypt. But despite having nearly 5 million people unemployed, Iraq could benefit the least.
But at the same time, I'm not sure how much Iraqis themselves would benefit from it. I mean, there have been also talk about the human capital of Egypt, but Iraq itself has almost 40 million citizens. So there could be an investment in the people themselves. At the same time, also, instead of buying electricity from other countries, whether that's Jordan, Egypt, or even Iran, Iraq should invest in electricity grids within Iraq itself, and it has failed in doing that because of the factors that I mentioned earlier.
This summit is aimed at increasing trade between the three countries and bringing Iraq back under the umbrella of Arab states. But this coalition is facing criticism for its stance on other Arab causes in the Middle East. Both Egypt and Jordan are part of an Arab bloc that includes Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which are facing criticism for their role in fomenting the conflict in Yemen and the United Arab Emirates in Libya. Experts say if this coalition succeeds, it may decrease Iran's gains in Iraq. But with a new leadership expected to take over in Iraq after elections in October, what can be achieved at this summit is open to question. Mahmoud Abdelwahid, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.
It's now time for sports news. In international sports news, international sports, ASCO Dakara are the new champions of the Togo's championship. On Sunday, ASCO Dakara beat its rival from the same city, the Association Sportive de la Cosa ASCK. It took penalties to decide the encounter after a 1-0 draw. ASCK had opened the scoring in the 35th minute through Chatokora Semio before a late equalizer from ASCO Dakara in the 85th minute took the match to extra time and then penalties.
ASKO Dakara are the new champions of Togo's championship. On Sunday, ASKO Dakara beat its rival from the same city, the Association Sportive de la Cosa, ASCK. It took penalties to decide the encounter after a 1-1 draw. ASCK had opened the scoring in the 35th minute through Chatakura Semiu before a late equalizer from ASKO Dakara in the 85th took the match to extra time and then penalties.
I feel very happy because the match is never won in advance. The championship was like a marathon. It wasn't easy.
Indeed, like a real marathon with 2 matches played per week. The championship had to run over the course of 3 months instead of 9 due to the coronavirus health crisis. It has not been easy to really get back into the game. The respect of COVID barrier measures in the stadiums was one of the main conditions imposed by the health authorities to allow the staging of the championship.
We have done many COVID tests. We had about 20 positive cases for the whole championship. As of today, we have no more positive cases. It was well managed.
The matches were played behind closed doors except for the final, where 2,000 spectators were allowed in the stadium.
We saw the players who were vaccinated. We observed the barrier measures from the beginning to the end of this championship. So I say bravo to them.
Going by the success of the championship, Togo now looks forward to another challenge, the organization of African club competitions, since the 2 finalists of the championship will represent the country in the African Champions League and the Confederations Cup.
The Football Association of Zambia, FAZ Executive Committee, has sent its General Secretary, ADRIAN KASHALA, on administrative leave for failure to meet the demands asked by the committee. In a statement issued by FAR's President Andrew Kamanga, KASHALA's suspension follows FAR's circular detailing decisions issued by the Secretariat of Ankana's complaint on Young Green Eagles' alleged use of an ineligible player, the suspension of Ndeni Football Club coach Mwenya Chipepo, and suspension of Kashikishi Warriors for physically abusing match officials. The Executive Committee, through the Emergency Committee, convened a meeting on the 23rd of June 2021 to address these matters. During the emergency meeting, the FAR's Secretariat, represented by the General Secretary, was requested to provide the committee with an explanation on the three matters and the status. After lengthy deliberation, the Executive Committee resolved that the matters that the Secretariat had provisionally ruled on before being referred to the relevant judicial bodies, as the Secretariat had no authority to deal with matters of such nature. That FAR's story brings us to the end of the news. We'll take a look at the headlines once more. The ICOZ partially lifts campaign ban slapped on the UPND and PF. Government orders closure of all bars and nightclubs for 2 weeks. ICOZ advises the church not to politicize the pulpit. And in international news, Tunisia cracks down on migrants after deal with Europe. And in sports news, FAR's General Secretary ADRIAN KASHALA sent on administrative leave. The Camnet word verse of the day is coming from Acts 1 verse 8, and it reads, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit has come on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." We've come to the end of the news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.